Hello, episode 21 already kicking off. Right, okay, this episode comes with the most excellent news, and I'm really pleased about this. The car's been accepted at the Silverstone Classics auction at the end of July. The guys I've been speaking to there feel it really will not be a centrepiece, because they're selling some seriously expensive motors there, but it's a good opportunity for me to move this car on, get some revenue back in, so I can start on the next car, which is most likely to be the Bobtail. Unfortunately I've got to bloody crack on with it now, because I've got a month. Photographers arriving next week to take photographs for the brochure, and I'll post a link to the auction. If anyone really fancies buying it, then there you go. It's heading off to auction, the first car in my new career. I mean, this was been largely built up as part of a hobby, and since I've been running the business, I've kind of really been filling my time in between the business, finishing this car off, but I'm very excited about it. Anyway, in this episode, lots of painting and stuff like that. Enjoy. Thank you. Found a better seat back unit. I'm still waiting for paint for the bonnet, which is now over here. Found a better seat back unit though, which I'm going to give a proper clean up to. It's from a slightly later car, but it's not as late as the seat back that's in it at the moment, because it hasn't got the little loop off the side here. So I've got a fair few holes to weld up. I'm not so sure about these holes on the top. I may have to weld those up. There's 5 of them, but they all look like maybe there would have been carpet on the back, so I'm going to double check that. None of these holes should exist. These are all screw holes that someone's drilled in for carpet. I'm suspecting that this lot was done not by the factory. None of these holes are particularly tidy, so all of this lot needs. That one is good. That one's going to come. That one, that one, that one, that one, that one. Weld all the holes up, clean it all back, zinc prime it, if the zinc prime ever fucking turns up, otherwise I'm going to rattle can it, because I just want to get on with some of this shit now, and then paint it. I want Palomino paint. I can lob the Palomino paint on it, put a clear lacquer over the top of it, and then fit it, and I think it's going to look a lot tidier than the one that's in the car at the moment. Just need to double check that hoop on the back. Yes, the hoop on the back is correct, and I've also fitted all of the let's open this window. I fitted all of the cappings on the passenger side as well. Look rather smart, don't they? So it's all coming together, this car. Armrest I'm not quite so keen on at the front, on the other side. There's a tidy horse up there just standing in the pissing rain. Miserable, isn't it, tidy horse? I'm going to have to find a better one of those. That's not good enough. The design fault with these is you can't close the door when the seat's tilted forwards. And I think that may have been damaged because of that. The one on the driver's side is good. Look at the way that door closes. Right, so let's get on with this seat back and stop gabbing on about it. Mr. Welder's coming out, I think. Mr. Flappy Disc, Mr. Welder, Mr. Prep Wheel. We're going to make a shitload of noise today, and the house martins are not going to like it, but I don't care, because they're crapping over everything. Look at this fuck. I put the cardboard down over the top of that, because they're not stopping shitting all over everything. There's a fucking mountain of it. Dirty little bastards. Right, okay. Cleaning up. These holes along the top rail are original. Another early car in the field. 71 cars got exactly the same thing, plus the plugs match exactly those plugs which came out of the floor, holding the floor mats down. So those are definitely the ones I want. Right, okay, I am gonna, now these are the holes I need to weld up. Let's get on with that, and then I'm going to clean up. Yeah, June is really coming on beautifully. I love a bit of June. Look at that. Keep pissing down. Cleaned all this lot back. Let's get on with welding these holes. Keep saying it, I'm going to get on with it. Fucking you, sneaky arsehole. This wing next. So this is a brand spanking new rear wing from Land Rover. Jaguar, Land Rover, whatever you want to call them. See, we've got its sticker on the inside. There we are. 5.7 kilos apparently. It's got an etch coating on it already, I'm believing. Oh, fucking, there's a big old run on that. And then I'll wait for that filler primer to dry off, and then I'll flat those back. That's going to need a bit of filler around the edge of it anyway. Here's the rear bumper corners. What I'm going to do with this though, this is going to be flatted back. It's got an etch primer over at the surface at the moment, but I want to wet flat this back, so get it as smooth as possible. Then I've got a single pack primer I'm going to lob onto it. So I'll put a nice big fat hairy coat of single pack primer on it, and then flat that back, and then it's ready for top coat. I can get that on the car. I could proceed with this rather than the bonnet, because the etch primer still hasn't turned up for the bonnet, which is ballsing me off. The rear seat back and stuff like that, I've just used a rattle can. Just wafted it on, flatted it back, filler primer over the top. It seems alright. There's a funny bit of filler down there, it's gone odd, and that bit of filler over there needs a bit more work. You don't see the work that needs doing on these things until you actually put a little bit of paint over the top of it, which I've just wafted paint over the top of that so I can flatten back again. There was a big dent there. That's gone now. There's a couple of other little dents on it, but some of these dents, you know, the character. There's another dent there. I can see now. That one wants a bit of filler in it. But on the whole, it's a shitload better than the one that I got back. Now, we need to move this other stuff out of the way really, so I'm going to put the other stuff on the bench and then work on this wing. Right, so taking it back as much as I dare. It's not completely flatted yet, but this, I don't want to go through this layer, and you can see I started going through this layer at the top edges here. So I'm going to put a, first of all I'm going to panel wipe it, and then I'm going to put a really thick coat of primer on that, and then flat that and work with that. But from what I can see, there's not a mark on this panel. Nice bit of kit. Interesting thing is, when you turn it over, you can see the effort's gone into making it. Almost like it's been hand finished. And on that shut face down there, can we get it into the, there we are, see down there? That's on the inside of the panel, obviously. There's been a couple of other areas where you can see metal working and so forth. There's a big chunk over there, but nothing visible on the outside. So yeah, it's had some work done. So I wonder these things are 650, nearly 700 quid. Right, let's get me paint ready and panel wipe, tidy up the area, and lob some primer on this. It's going to be white, of course, so I need to be careful about making sure the primer doesn't react with this black. It's a single pack primer I've got. What have I got? What have I got? What have I got? What have I got? I've got... Here we are. This is what I bought. Bom, 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 bom. Put it on the bench. So we have got a 2-pack primer. 2-pack primer, which is good because I've got an activator. It's a 4-to-1, and I've got an activator as well. And then I bought a litre of silver, or half a litre I should say, of silver, which is going to be the bumpers and the corners. That's not getting used just yet. And then I've got a spare activator because I wasn't sure how much activator I had left, but I've got a fair amount now. So this stuff does require very, very, very careful use. Don't do this unless you know what you're doing, guys. And then when I've done that, I'm letting this go off properly overnight before I do any more work with it. Because the problem is the filler primer is quite soft. Right, so that's the filler primer gone on. It's a 2-pack filler primer. I'm keeping away from it. I'm standing in the fresh air at the moment, but it's gone on, and I'm going to wait overnight for that to cure. It's going to need blocking back. It's gone on like fucking porridge. I should have really thinned it a bit more than I did. Right, I'm going to go and have a coffee now. These chaps come out really nicely. There's a filler primer on them at the moment. I mean, okay, they're bumper corners. There's probably a few marks down the edge there. This one's similarly, apart from the big run on the front there. Not come out bad. What I hadn't noticed was the big gaps around the edges there, so I'm going to put a bit of filler in that. Yes. Right, so all of the base has now gone on. Different technique I'm using now, after chatting to my paint man. It's gone a lot better. I don't necessarily want to hide all of these spot welds and, you know, little bits of history and dings and dents and stuff like that. It's kind of, again, it's about retaining patina. So I've got rid of the worst dent, which was right there. Turned out nice again, and but the rest of it, I think, is going to stay exactly as it is. So I'm going to put the clear coat on this probably in about half an hour. And in the meantime, I was wiring up the sensors on that, but I don't want it in here because I'm painting. So I'm going to have to find something else to do now. Piss flaps. Yes. Seat back's come up nicely, pleased with that. That's done the job. Just leaving that for the clear coat to settle. And then I've been flatting back this wing. I'll go to the stage now, sorry about the strobe, you know what it is. I've been flatting it back now to basically get it ready for a top coat, and I'm going to put solid on this, so it should be a 2-pack. I'm waiting for it all to completely dry out and just double check there are no high spots. I've not been over it with a guide coat, but I've been over it with a block. It's difficult. I mean, I've gone through to the etch primer in a number of places, but I'm not particularly bothered about that. It's not a steel panel, and the paint is going to stick to it. There's a few places down here that could go back a tiny bit further. Just if I get the light right on it, you just about to see a tiny little bit of here, smooth as Felicity Kendall's arse. That all I'm happy with. All up here, I'm happy with. There's a little bit there. Nice and smooth. I'll give it a proper panel wipe before I paint it anyway. Around the inside of the arch, I'm going to do that as well, because that's not been done. It's quite, the paint, I should have thinned the paint and primer before I put it on. I didn't for one reason or another. But you know, these things happen. But that's almost ready for paint now. Oh, there's a big chunk there, look. You could just about see that. See the dots? That's basically where I've got high points or low points in the filler primer. You see that? Well, that doesn't exist up here. So I just need to work on this a little bit. It's just a wet and dry. I'm using a 240 grade wet and dry paper. This paint is actually quite thick, so I think we'll be all right. I'm definitely getting better at this painting malarkey. Look at the reflection on this. I mean, bearing in mind, all I did was put the filler primer on, very, very light flatting, and then lobbed a top coat on it. Yeah, right, okay. I'll put that in there because the birds are flying in and out, and guarantee the little fuckers are going to shit on it. And I've had enough disasters today. I don't need any more. Right, this now is ready to paint. I'm going to paint it on this side of the barn because the birds go from there and they tend to go straight through that way. So there's less chance of me getting crap on my nice fresh paint. Right, let's get ready to do this. I'm going to paint it on this is a log stand. So honestly, it's a saw bench. How about that, eh? It'll do though. It will do. Right, let's get a panel wipe on this now, and then we're going to go over it. I think that's ready for paint. I'm happy with it. It's not going to get any better. I might just have to put a blow gun over the edge there because there's some seams down here and there might be a bit of moisture in there. I don't want any moisture on it. Yeah, I'm going to move up this end. I'm going to put it on the workmates right in this corner because I don't want any more rain. Because it has been raining and you can see how far the rain's coming in. And I appreciate that a solid 2-pack paint goes off quite quickly, but still, I don't need it. And it has been particularly summery today. Look at it. Yes. It's one of these bastards. That's another one up there. They're going around getting all the food for the little chicklets. Right, it's cracking on. And the etch primer for the bonnet, they were waiting for something to come in on the order, which I didn't really even bloody need. They didn't think that I probably wanted to know, which is a bit irritating. So because of that, now I'm without etch primer, but this is Brighton Auto Paint, so very, very kindly taking it on their shoulders, and they're going to ship it out for a Saturday delivery, which they wouldn't normally do. But kind of, I've ordered the stuff on Tuesday. It's a little bit annoying, but maybe I need to put on these orders. I'm ordering a litre of etch cleaner, and I bloody just damn well need it now. Right, I'm going to use this piece of cardboard, I think, as a base. If I open this up, that should be good enough. Right, let me stop wrestling with the cardboard and my phone at the same time. Flaming Joe! I mean, look at it! Fucking weather. Anyway, it's the noise I have to put up in the back of this barn. This wing has come on nice. There's a few specks and things that just need polishing out on it, but there's enough paint on there for Steve to be able to deal with that. The only issue I've got is that it's a fucking great fisheye. Completely isolated. It's almost like somebody's fucking stood on it, like a little birdie. I have to check their little claws and find out if they've got. There's another tiny fisheye there, you can see him, and the one there. There's something for Steve to work with. I can get the panel bolted up once the paint's gone off. Tomorrow I'll bolt this wing on, but again, you've got quite a nice shine out of it. It's pretty much straight out of the gun. That needs a good polish, so I'll let Steve deal with the minor imperfections. Yeah, quite pleased with that. Stop raining, and then I can get this bloody panel into the unit. I can't do it yet because them birds is all fucking up there at the moment, and they'll just be ready to do that all over my freshly painted panel. And then you'll hear some swearing. Very, very, very close to stopping raining. As soon as it stopped raining, this is going in there. And then I don't have to stand guard over the damn thing anymore. It's not a damn thing, it's a wonderful thing. A thing of beauty, look at that. Marvellous. No paint reactions at all, apart from a couple of fish eyes. Need to take this carburetor off. So this needs to come off because I need to replace the fuel feed in. I want to take the float chamber out and the valve out before I mess around with this. Because if there's any swarf in there, it will jam the float valve open. So the carburetor needs to come off. Now, anyone that's taken one of these carburetors off a Rover V8 will know about this fixing down here. It's the bottom fixing. You can just about see it's about there. Yep. It's a bullseye. You can't get to it with anything. So you get a stubby spanner. Now, stubby spanner's not stubby enough. Let me introduce to you super stubby spanner. And it actually gets onto the sodding nut. This thing is ridiculously inaccessible. Once you get your super stubby spanner, then it works. Oh, the other interesting one is the one at the top on this side. You can't get the nut off. There, it comes off now. It comes off now. But once that's the first one you need to put back on again. Otherwise, you won't get it on because the stud's just a millimetre too long. I suppose I could cut the stud down, but where would the fun in that be? Right, okay. Super stubby spanner is working beautifully. Sometimes you need to have a range of, I mean, bear in mind, there's a stubby spanner, a normal length spanner, and super stubby spanner. Pissing thing. Anyway. With this off, then I should be able to remove the entire carburetor. There's the nut. Woohoo! Here's the nut. It's important to know where the nuts are. May contain nuts. Carburetor off. Ski. There we are. So the float chamber will be full of fuel. I need to sort that out, and then I'm going to. There's the fuel feed there. So let me go work on this on the bench. and I'll show you what it is I'm up to. Nice little strommy. So float chamber's off, 6 screws, hold that on, bottom of the carburetor, there's the float. I'm not going to fiddle with the float, but I will check the float height afterwards. That's the little valve I need to take out, because the fuel comes in there, comes out of there. Neat, huh? And it gets sucked up there. Or there, if the choke's open. If the choke's open, it gets sucked up there. Ever so simple, these things, and people moan like hell that they're difficult, complicated. There's the little float valve. Interesting, it's got a little filter on the end of it. They don't have those on Stags for some reason. But yeah, it's a float valve. Markings on the side there. It's happy enough. Right, now I've got access to where that pipe needs to go into. So that's fairly straightforward. I'm going to put that pipe in next. Then put the float valve back in, clean up the gasket faces, set it back up again, put the float chamber on, bolt it back up to the carburetor, up to the inlet manifold. Throttle on this thing's nicely working. We have problems with the choke not behaving itself, but it seems to be now. Right. Yeah. Right, so that was an interesting conundrum there. First and foremost was trying to get the olive onto the pipe. That's the old bit of pipe. Then I tried to cut a piece of pipe and found my cutter was going medieval, crushing the pipe, so I scrapped that. And then we tried to push an olive on and bent the pipe. And the last time I tried it, using very, very gentle pressure and putting a socket over the top of the olive like that, and tappity tap, I got the olive to fit. And I banged the olive quite a long way down the pipe because the union it goes into, it needs to sort of seat down like that. Then, once that was all on, I connected this up and then tappity tap pipe in until the pipe is just flush on the inside. There's a bit of swarf in there. I'm just going to get rid of that bit of swarf and then put the valve back in. So to set the float height, no gasket I'm guessing, section 16. That's 0.18. With the carburetor in the inverted position, measure the distance between the carburetor body face and the highest point on the float, 17 to 18 millimeters. So, I'm going to get my ruler, and all I do then is balance that on there, and I will do it properly without kind of trying to film it at the same time. And you're looking at a level from the top of the across the top of the floats, and like that, 17 to 18 millimeters. And in order to adjust it, you just bend this tab so that the float sits higher or lower. Okay, that is how you set a float in a Stromberg carburetor. Piece of piss, honestly. It's important to set the float correctly, otherwise what will happen is if the float's too low, then you're going to end up with fuel starvation. If it's too high, then it will be flooding fuel up the main jet, and the engine will pack up or overflow or flood and make nasty noises. Horrible experience for you. And then everyone will slag off Stromberg carburetors saying how shit they are, which is not necessarily the case. Right, I'm going to set this and then I'm going to put the float chamber back on with a new gasket, of course. Primer's going on. So the primer I'm using here is an etch, but it's an etch rapid filler. It's a single pack. Mix it 2 to 1 with a quality thinner, not a gun wash. And it fires out the gun pretty easily. You're going to use a fairly coarse gun. I'm using a 1.8mm tip, and to be honest, it could do with a bit bigger, I reckon, because I'm having to put the paint on quite slowly. But you can see on the front here where I've been concentrating on the edges, that will flat off and go completely matte. There's about 600ml of paint gone on here so far. That's going to be about 4 coats. So you see what I mean about the maybe the gun tip needs to be a little bit bigger, but it's going on all right. Most of the little dents have filled out. So there was a dent in the middle of that panel there, about there. I remember there were 3 or 4 dents on here. Now it's difficult to tell where the dents are going to be until you've actually got a guide coat on it and you start blocking it out. That's obviously the big one. That's the stone chip. I spotted that one before, and there's another one there I can see. There's a low point, you can see him moving around the shadow. And there's a few more around and about, but I'm almost out of time down here in Devon this time round. I need to go home. Mrs. is screaming because she's got 3 sons our three sons, my beloved three sons, who are all adults now. They're all over 18 years old and they're all behaving like utter morons. No, they're not. They're wonderful. No, but I need to fix my middle son's car. It's got a Polo. The brakes are dead on. I need to fix that because he wants to drive it. There's a dent there as well. Look at that one. You see that dent there? I'll go over it and block it. I'll get this thing looking really, really nice. Where the hole was at the back there that I welded and filled it, there's a tiny mark there where the filler needs to be sorted out. But on the whole, pretty pleased with this bonnet. There's a few bits of crap and so forth on the paint. I'm not bothered about shit like that. It'll flat out. When I come to put the top coat on it, I'll have to be a little bit more careful. I'll move further into the barn. Hopefully by then the house martins will have gone. Yeah, I'm pleased with that. I'm going to wait for that all to flash off, then I'm going to lob another coat at it. The wing, I'm really, actually very, very pleased with this wing. Now it's all flatted out. Look at the shine on that, out of the gun, for me. I mean, okay, it's a bit of orange peel to polish out. There's a couple of imperfections. That's a fucking fly, that is. There's a fisheye here. But the big one that I could see when I was painting it is down here. I'm going to have a chat with Steve and find out what I need to do about that, because I'm back here in a week's time. And I want to kind of get this thing done nicely. There's a few areas where I just need to polish bits out that have fallen off birds' feet. Love them, really. I think that's possibly what that was. Bird flew over the panel as it was drying off, dropped something. So I'll flat that out very, very carefully. There's a couple of bits and bobs on it. But once that gets polished out, I reckon that'll come up the absolute business. So it's by no means a disaster, and it's the first big panel that I've painted in a very, very, very long time. Last time I painted a car, it was a Ford Anglia 105E, I think, and I was probably about 20. This is a 2-pack paint that went on here. So I'm going to leave it for a fair few days, wait for it to harden properly. I'll put it on exactly as Steve suggested. So that's that. The seat back. The weather's about to turn inclement, I feel. The seat back is going on today. So that is exactly how I wanted it. There's a few bits of character around and about. There's all the spot weld marks on it. Yeah, it's exactly as it should be. So that's going to get assembled in a moment while I'm waiting for this paint to flash off. And I'm going to put that on. And I'm well chuffed with that. That's exactly how I wanted it. So that's that different seat back fitted in. It's got the period correct poppers along the top there. I don't know what they're for. I'm going to find out. It looks considerably less rusted on the top edge. It's got some dents in character, we'll call it, but way better than the other one, I'm sure you'd agree. Right, now, the other issue I found when I pulled it all apart, it's dawdled into the garage via the bonnet, which is flashed off quite nicely. What I found though, ignoring the strobe, is there's a line of dents. It's almost like a Vulcan bombing raid on Port Stanley Harbour. Nice long straight line of dents. There's also, when you get down really low, you can see it's got hand dents on the bonnet. Do us a favour, lads, whenever you close the bonnet on a Range Rover, let it drop a lot. Don't put your dirty great mitts in the middle of it and push it down, because all you do is put big dents on it. Right, the other problem I found, these catches that hold the seat brackets in. Now, they've done some work on this, you can see, because they put new covers, they've retained the original foam, but some of these are very rusty. So I'm going to put a little bit of rust treatment on those gently, so I'm not going to affect the fabric, and then I'm going to put it back into the car once it's dried off. I think that may well be the reason why there were lumps of rust. You look at this one down here. Oh, it's not great, is it? Again, it would have been nice to have known before they put the nice covers on, but it will recover. Put this little closing panel on there, so this closes in the handle on the rear tailgate. And while I was doing all that, I noticed that my nice galv panel, I've gone through the galv in a few places, and it has actually started to rust. So I'm going to mask it up, clean back the rust with a bit of steel wool, And I'm going to give it a lick of, I don't know, lacquer, I think, just to protect the effects that it's got at the moment. A shame if I have to paint it, but if I have to paint it, I'll paint it. It has been raining quite a lot. All these bits up here need a bit of lacquer. I mean, it's all just surface rust. That's a little bit of indiscretion that I swore quite loudly over.